The first game up on Conference Championship Sunday is in Philadelphia with an NFC title on the line. The Eagles host the San Francisco 49ers. We gave you that Philadelphia perspective. Now time for the San Francisco breakdown. Live right here on this Football Friday on the morning after. Joining us once again on TMA, it is Steph Sanchez, live right here on the show, the host of the 49 Carats podcast, covering all things San Francisco 49ers. You can watch it on YouTube, get it wherever you stream your favorite podcast. Steph, thank you so much for joining us here on this Football Friday on TMA to preview the NFC Championship game between the Eagles and the 49ers.
Hey, Ben, good morning.
Good morning to you. It is a very good Friday morning as we get ready for Conference Championship weekend. Steph, the Niners an underdog for the first time in a long time entering the NFC title game. But Steph, as you well know, despite being a 2.5-point underdog, the San Francisco 49ers, the hottest team in the National Football League. They have won 12 consecutive games, including both of their postseason victories to get to this point, an NFC Championship game on Sunday afternoon in Philadelphia. Steph, how would you describe the mentality of this 49ers squad right now, winners of 12 straight, entering this NFC title game on Sunday?
You know, I think it's healthy to have just a tiny bit of adversity, right? Because when you've won 12 games in a row, that doesn't happen very often. So I think the 49ers are going to be embracing the fact that they're going to be underdogs in this one. And they're going to want to go out there and prove a point in a hostile environment out there in the link.
Yeah, they have not been an underdog, has San Francisco, since week number 8 against the LA Rams. They won that game outright by 3 scores. It was the start of this now 12-game win streak. Of course, Steph, a big focus for everybody breaking down this football game is on the man formerly known as Mr. Irrelevant. Now he's Mr. Relevant, the rookie quarterback Brock Purdy, making his first postseason career road start in Philadelphia in that hostile environment at the Link on Sunday. Steph, he is in Kyle Shanahan's offensive scheme. So what do you think is a fair level of expectation for Purdy against Philly on Sunday afternoon?
Yeah, well, I feel like we can kind of take what he did against the Cowboys and possibly apply it to this game against Philadelphia. You know, he didn't have any touchdowns last week against the Cowboys, but I think the biggest contribution was maybe the fact that he didn't have any turnovers, right? He took 2 sacks early, but he settled in and he made some big plays when he needed to, especially on third downs where he was 8 of 11. It'll be tougher, of course, this week going up against this Philadelphia defense, which is just a different beast. Going into a hostile environment as well will be tough. You know, the beauty of this 49ers offense, though, is that it doesn't have to all be on his shoulders. He should be able to get the ball out to his playmakers, let them do the rest. And I think we see more of that in this game. And the 49ers are going to want to sustain drives in this one to keep the ball out of Hurts and the Eagles' offense's hands.
Steph, it's such a good point, right? Because it's not all on Brock Purdy or his right arm. His head coach is Kyle Shanahan, probably the best offensive mind in all of the National Football League. And the tools he has at his offensive disposal, as good as you will find in the NFL. That includes 2 of the most dynamic playmakers in all of the sport, in Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel. Steph, as you evaluate this San Francisco offense, how do you describe the significance that both Run CMC and Deebo have to the 49ers offensive game plan?
Well, I mean, let's start with McCaffrey, right? The 49ers went from 19th in points scored per game to 2nd after he came along, 18th in yards per game to now 4th. You know, and he's dealing with a calf injury right now, but when he was asked if there was any chance he's going to miss this game, he said 0. So he's going to be out there. And I thought overall, you know, the Cowboys, they defended the run pretty well last week. McCaffrey only handled 10 carries, 35 yards, compared to Elijah Mitchell's 15. But I think both McCaffrey and Deebo are going to be important in this game. The Eagles have allowed an average of 121 rushing yards per game this season. That ranks 16th in the league. And with this defense that doesn't have a lot of holes in it, you got to find the one, you know, maybe slight flaw that they have to try to exploit. And so I think the 49ers are going to try to do that. Eagles defense also allowed 13 touchdowns on the ground this season. And here's the kicker. The Eagles are also 24th in DVOA covering running backs out of the backfield. And we know there isn't a better receiving back in the NFL than CMC. There's also the possibility that the Eagles try to load the box and force Purdy to try and beat them. I can see that happening. So to me, that's where Deebo Samuel may come in. The Eagles corners play a lot of zone about 60% of the time. And that's where Deebo makes his money because he's so good in space. and getting yards after the catch. And so these Philly linebackers, they play a lot of man. So you may be able to manipulate some space. And who does that better than Kyle Shanahan? And so, say a Kittle, Christian McCaffrey can bring a linebacker down and away from the play, create some space for a guy like Debo or maybe even Brandon Ayuk in this one. It's going to be a chess match for sure, but it'll be interesting to see how Shanahan uses his pieces.
Kyle Shanahan, one of the best offensive minds. Jonathan Gannon, the defensive coordinator for Philadelphia, seems like he is destined to become a head coach following this season as well. I'm glad you bring up George Kittle. And of course, Steph, that will be a focus. For me, a Big Ten football fan, I have tried to highlight throughout this stretch together with Brock Purdy and George Kittle the Cy-Hawk connection of the former Cyclone from Iowa State in Brock Purdy and the former Iowa Hawkeye in George Kittle. 5 grabs, 95 yards last week against the Dallas Cowboys, a playoff career high for George Kittle. 90 or more receiving yards 4 times this year for Kittle. 3 of them have been a game where Brock Purdy has made the start at quarterback. 46.5 is his receiving yards number for this Sunday's NFC title game against Philadelphia. Steph, how have you seen this relationship form between Brock Purdy and George Kittle this season?
Well, I mean, Kittle has just been a great outlet for Brock Purdy, right? They seem to have great chemistry. They connected on, I believe, 7 touchdowns between week 15 and week 18. So they were on a roll there. And you mentioned the 5 catches he caught last week. 4 of those went for first downs. So not only is it a great chemistry that they have, but they're very productive together. And it's going to be tough this week, I think, because these Philly linebackers, they're great in coverage. TJ Edwards or Kaiser Wright, neither of them have allowed a touchdown in coverage this season, and they're second and third in pass breakups among all linebackers. So it may take some of that magic chemistry that Purdy and Kittle have to get some real connections going in this one.
State of Iowa, eat your heart out when you see George Kittle and Brock Purdy. They bring the state together, Steph, despite that being a very bitter rivalry between the Cyclones and the Hawkeyes. On the other side of the football, I think it's pretty fair to say the San Francisco 49ers are the best defense in all of the National Football League, the best scoring defensive unit, the best total defensive unit, the best rushing defense in all of the sport as well. So, Steph, when it comes to slowing down Philly's offensive attack, it all starts with Jalen Hurts at the quarterback spot for the Birds. What do you expect the defensive game plan for the 49ers to be against Philly on Sunday afternoon?
I think it'll all come down to discipline because defending against a mobile quarterback, especially when it's paired with a great run game, especially when it's paired against great receivers like the Eagles have, it requires a different kind of discipline, right? It puts defenses in such a difficult position. And that's why so many defenses have trouble with it. It isn't just the 49ers that have struggled with this, right? And they've only faced really one true double threat quarterback all year, and that was in week 1 against Justin Fields. And that was also in a monsoon. So that was less than ideal conditions to try to defend it, right? They gave up 28 rushing yards to Fields. It doesn't seem like much, but what also happened and what also impacted that was it impacted the pass defense because defenders see a quarterback on the move. They want to come down. They want to attack, but that leaves guys open in the back end, which makes way for big plays to happen. Something the 49ers just can't afford to do in this game. Another thing is you have to maintain gap integrity, right? It isn't just about trying to collapse a pocket, get after the quarterback, because if you leave any space, any gap open, Hurts is going to be one of those guys who's going to just take off and gash you for a big gain. So it's a challenge in many aspects. And look, the 49ers have the talent on defense. The question is, will they have the discipline?
You mentioned week number 1 because to start this season, Steph, it was Trey Lance at the quarterback spot. Yeah. He's injured week number 2. Jimmy Garoppolo, who seemed like he had played his last game for San Francisco, back as the starting QB. And despite the fact this is the 3rd trip in the last 4 years to the NFC Championship game for San Francisco, it's their 3rd quarterback of the year. Again, the man formerly known as Mr. Irrelevant in Brock Purdy. Steph, as you evaluate this season for the 49ers, as you try to sum it up as the best you can, what does this appearance in an NFC title game say about the organization overall and the head coaching job that Kyle Shanahan has done?
I mean, I think it says a lot, and it's no surprise that Kyle Shanahan is getting consideration for Coach of the Year, right? And I also think John Lynch should have gotten consideration for Exec of the Year, but that's another topic. So I think to start the season, we saw a team with little identity, no consistency, and they were dealing with a lot of injuries that kind of swayed the direction of the team for a bit, and a lot of adjustments needed to be made. Then they make the trade for McCaffrey, sitting at 3-3, and that certainly helped to ignite this team, and really also Kyle Shanahan's offensive play calling as well. Jimmy Garoppolo was probably playing some of his best football for this team as well, and they get on a win streak, and then he gets hurt, and so that game against the Dolphins, I think, was a really important one because a lot of people were saying, well, the 49ers haven't played anyone good. And at that point, the Dolphins were actually pretty good. And when Jimmy goes down, you go through the 7 stages of grief in a matter of minutes, but it's mystery relevant the rest of the way. Let's just see what happens, right? And lo and behold, they're now in the NFC Championship. So you really couldn't have written a better story for this kid.
The third quarterback of the year, Brock Purdy, leads San Francisco into the NFC Championship game against Philadelphia on Sunday. Steph Sanchez, the host of the 49 Carats podcast, joining us here to break it all down from that 49ers angle. Steph, thank you so much. Have a great weekend, and of course, enjoy that NFC title game on Sunday afternoon.
Always a pleasure, Ben. Thanks. Go Niners.
Go Niners indeed. We round out the show here on this Football Friday.